Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. Even though there's not much left in here. The drink of the day. Orange vanilla, like a creamsicle sort of Waterloo. So there's a couple things that came up I didn't even include yesterday and then today. I talked about Janelle Monae. She announced today, well, it was that Lipstick Lover that was the second single she had released this year. She put out a song called Float in a video a few months ago, which I really liked. Lipstick, the little teaser was kind of exhibitionist, very sexually sort of, or not really lacking in, design, free in the nipple, and it's not the first time she's been provocative and just very loose with nudity and that kind of thing with her music and music videos. The last album, Dirty Computer especially, and her lyrics, of course. She's always pushing boundaries. The album's called The Age of... Was it Age of... The Age of... Pleasure. Age of Pleasure, yeah. And the cover... I guess it references this cover of some, album cover? Some artwork of some people in Trinidad from the 70s. But the video for Lipstick Lover is just sort of... It's sort of like a very loose, chillax sort of orgy of sorts in different montages and stuff. The thing is with Janelle Monae is when I first heard about her, I was shy because I thought she was more style or substance, and I was totally wrong about that. I mentioned this in the blog, and her first EP, I don't call it the audition, but Metropolis EP that came out in 2007, and then the Arc Android, which is part 2 of that saga, the Cindy Mayweather saga, are both fantastic. They're really great, but very creative, very artsy, very orchestral at times, very genre blending, from psych rock to R&B, soul, even some hip hop, of course. And pop, of course. Pop is probably, if you put her into one genre, that would be the most specific. But, of course, she has the label in the next album, Queen, categorize me, I defy every label. And Queen, the Electric Lady came out after that, and I really enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy that as much as the Arc Android, but I still enjoyed a lot of that. And again, it was very artistic, very kind of thematic, Disney soundtrack-ish, orchestral, very creative, very sci-fi-ish. And I know with, the single, she put out Yoga, and some of the lyrics on Yoga are sort of provocative, but they're more metaphorical. The video even isn't as explicit. But, she got into her acting career and everything like that. And I understand this happened with a few dozen actors alone. Just think about it. Not just African-American, but a lot of, hip-hop rappers have done that, from Queen Latifah to Will Smith to... who else? I mean, Timberlake, he's not a rapper, but you could put him on that list as well. Went on to do music went on to do movies and television, or movies after doing music. And she's kind of, you could say that she's doing more Hollywood film. She's not doing television really, but she's doing more film than doing music. But she's still doing music, and she put out Dirty Computer in 2018, and it was a little too overt lyrically on the nose to me. And so I liked a couple of songs, the way you feel, or whatever it was, which sounded a lot like a Prince song. But and she takes a lot of inspiration from both Prince and Michael Jackson, among many others. So Float came out. Again, she's a missed her acting career earlier this year. I was wondering when she's gonna put out new music, but I haven't been as religiously paying attention to her like I might have before Dirty Computer, especially. And I was like, oh, this is more in the lines. I mean, she's using the N-word, and she's still using some metaphors, but it was still more musically, more in the realm of that earlier stuff than the stuff on Dirty Computer. I know it's the sexuality, she's sort of non-binary of sorts or whatever, but you look at the way she dressed, the way she sort of publicly talked about things and everything like that. She was just very kind of calm, cool, and collected, and very like, even though she was pushing boundaries, she wasn't necessarily having to do it overtly as an exhibitionist. So, but with Dirty Computer, I kind of felt like, yeah, now she's just changing and she's getting older. Usually it's the other way around. You're kind of, when you're younger, you're sort of trying to figure things out and you're going to try to, speak to the world. By the end, you're kind of growing and sort of maybe being more subtle. But, so this new album, The Age of Pleasure, one song I like, the song itself isn't bad. The new song, Lipstick Lover, at parts there's some vocal harmonies in it, but the video, the cover art for the album, it's only like 31 minutes, like 16 songs or something, I guess, but comes out June 9th. I'm definitely going to listen, and I was thinking of the comparisons, or thinking about, like, I wonder if she's drawing some inspiration from some of her contemporaries, like Beyonce, I guess, to an extent, Cardi B, Doja Cat, Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj, where, let's not be so sort of confined to the restrictions of censoring sexuality. Let's desexualize. Let's just, like, it's just, so what? It's the way of being a human being. The way it is in other countries as opposed to America, the conservative approach. Amanda Palmer is one of the ones I think of the most who did that. She just kind of, nudity was so nonchalant with her. It's like, why is it such a big deal that you're seeing my breasts and seeing my nipples? And even showing sexual sort of overtones and images, and, in a lot of her videos, and, on her artwork, and just top photographs and stuff. Janelle has definitely kind of changed that, or decided to do different things with that, and kind of come out of that persona of Cindy Mayweather to an extent as the android, or even with the bow tie and tux, or the tux at least. And Kimbra, of course, on her newest album, and a lot of the photographs and promotional materials, was being probably her most sort of provocative and sexual. So I don't know if that's kind of, maybe she was influenced by Janelle. I know that they were going to tour together, going to tour together at one point. Didn't happen because Kimbra ended up having some kind of medical issue. Was it Kimbra or one of those two? They couldn't do it. It was supposed to be done under, but they know each other. They know each other's music. So I don't know. Kimbra being inspired by some of these other artists and sort of modern R&B and pop as well. But I kind of look at what Kimbra did as being somewhat tamed compared to what Janelle. She's just kind of just saying, you know what, I'm gonna show whatever I want. I'm gonna say whatever I want. That I'm an artist and I'll do that. And I applaud her for that. But to me, I drew more from her sort of not needing necessarily to be so explicit, to be so much of an exhibitionist. So, but when it comes down to ultimately for me with music is, what does it sound like when I'm listening to it? And like I said, the new song has its moments. I'll listen to it more, of course, Lipstick Lover. But Float, though, is definitely, I like Float probably better than anything off of Dirty Computer. So I wanted to also mention, I didn't talk about yesterday, there's this artist named, I believe it's La Priest. I don't know what his real name is, or this is his performer or his artist name. He was in the band Late of the Pier. Late of the Pier had the debut album that was really great, and then 2008, and then they put out a song called Blueberry, and put out one other one. Blueberry was great. And then they broke up, and then a few years later we found out the drummer passed away. But La Priest, I don't know if he's like the singer. Go back, but he put out a debut album called Injai in 2015. I did listen to it once, but it has one track that was, because I listened to the singles. It has one track that really stood out. It's called Oh I Know. It's just one word, and it's like his most popular song. He's, let's see, Samuel Eastgate is his real name. And I think he was he might have been the lead singer for Late of the Pier, and maybe like the guitarist as well. Yes, and he played some keyboards. So he was Late of the Pier, but unfortunately Ross Dawson's the drummer, passed away. But I mean, Later the Pier were not at Apes and Androids level. They weren't, for better or for worse, they didn't sound exactly like Apes and Androids, but they were of a similar. Their album Fantasy Black Channel is sort of a cult classic. British band, came out in 2008. Yeah, they put out Blueberry. They put out one other one, Best in Class, I think it was. Yeah, Blueberry is just really good. It's really catchy, really energetic. Anyway, that indie-tronic, electronic, La Priest. Oh, I Know is very catchy. It's sort of progressive. Uses a lot of kind of pitch bending guitars, almost sounding like a banjo at points. Uses a lot of like voice effects. He's some of it's lo-fi. So he has a new album out, La Priest, that came out last week. That I was listening to some of it. The first couple singles weren't bad. See, what I'm sort of getting at with him is that I basically knew him as a singles artist. I had not spent a lot of time with any full albums. I guess the Injai record I'd listened to, but I really just remember Oh I Know and like one or two other songs he'd released. He put out an album in 2020 called Gene, which I'm listening to some of that today, and actually the first 3 songs I'm liking. Not as much as Oh I Know from the Injai from 2015, but beginning, Rubber Sky especially, and What Moves. So, I need to kind of spend a little more time with some more of his music. But, it's like Later the Pier, the odds of them ever doing music again seem next to nothing. I don't know. This is actually the 15-year anniversary of Fantasy Black Channel. That comes out. Should do like an anniversary. I don't remember when that came out. I mean, it's 2008, of course. False Luna, or Face Luna is the name of the new La Priest record. I always think it was L.A. Priest, but La Priest. But it's a couple, like Star and I believe it's maybe On the First track were singles, but it's really chill. And it's like, you listen to Fantasy Black Channel, and while it has some chill moments, it's just the energy is part of what makes that record really good. And Oh I Know, while it's not like super fast, it definitely has its hooks. It flows really well. It reminds me a little bit about the Cale Parks EP that Brian Jacobs produced, Too Swift Mars. So I maybe slept on some of his music, but I'm kind of feeling like he's an artist that's released a handful of good songs, one really terrific song in Oh I Know, and I'll listen to the Face Luna more just to see. But a little bit like the Chap too, who are British, who also would fall into that. And they have the one song Proper Rock I love, and then they have songs spotty here and there. But I find like a lot of these indie-tronica artists will put out specific tracks I love, and then I kind of just meander through some of their other songs. But we'll see. Face Luna came out last week from La Priest. It's his 3rd full length, because Gene came out in 2020 and Injai was 2015. And some people consider Injai a classic, the debut album, and I need to spend more time with it. I did listen to it years ago. I gave it 3 stars, but from my memory, I just remember downloading. I wanted something like Blueberry, and Oh I Know was kind of in that vein. But I remember downloading some of those songs. Like, when's this guy going to put out a debut album? And he did. Or when's the next album coming out? Wasn't really keeping tabs that well on him. When did Fantasy Black? I just wanted to see. We got a 15-year anniversary. This August 11th, so it's a number of months from now. So, let's see here. 2 other records. Was going to mention Meer, the band. Our friends are blasting their music out of their car, of course. Meer, the band from Norway, who I know a lot of the prog fans really got into their record from a couple years ago. And I listened to it, and it was toward the end of 2021, seeing end of year lists and stuff like that. The album's called Playhouse, I think it is. I think it's Playhouse or Playhouse. And let's see here, where is it? Yeah, Playing House. I gave it 2.5 stars, and there's so many records that are like prog folks that like praise left and right. And a friend of mine on Facebook from England, this guy named Martin, was telling me, because he's looking at some of the stuff I've been talking about, and he mentioned it's like, have you ever given that record a full listen? And I did right when I listened to it. It was right when I listened to Giant Sky, Mask of the Phantasm, Squid. I think those were those 3 especially. It was late in 2021, and I think I kind of just listened to it once and just sort of blew it off a bit. And I know that people praised it, like Nathan on Shuffle praised it. I think Notes Reviews also did. A lot of people on Progressive Ears, some people on the Dream Theater forums praised it. And so, when I was looking at some of the ratings and rating music, a lot of my friends rated much higher than me. So I went back to it today, and I admit, though, while I can understand why I didn't totally get into it all, there's a number of songs that are good on it. I think part of it is the singer. The female singer I really like. The male singer, he's a little like Sufjan Stevens, but, although the singer from Giant Sky is a little bit like that too, but I found like by the second half of the record, I was enjoying him a little bit more too, but the female vocals with the female singer I really got into. So Meer, Playing House from 2021, I'm going to have to go back to that more now. I may pick up a physical copy at some point. But yeah, I understand a little bit more what the fuss is about. They're kind of Yes-like. They're kind of like Baroque Project to an extent. They're very symphonic, but they still have these riffs and have some textures in there. Some of the vocal arrangements are nice. The energy works. There's probably 5 or 6 songs I'm like, yeah, I added the 2021 list. Yeah, that song's really good. I mean, just kind of going over it today, because on Spotify I didn't do anything with it back in 2021 or early 2022, but the weird thing about them is I cannot find them. I don't know if they're on Twitter, but they have other records besides this record. This was like their 3rd or 4th record. Beehive is a favorite of a lot of people. Honey, Across the Ocean, the last song, Lay It Down. I mean, it is symphonic. And symphonic music, using strings, using orchestration, and it's all often in a major key, can be a little saccharine to me. And a lot of prog, a lot of neo-prog and newer retro prog does that, uses that. And it just kind of I get lost in it, it doesn't grab me enough. But I think it's sort of channeled in, and it's not overdone for the most part. These songs aren't 20 minutes. These are songs that range between like 3 and 7 minutes. So it is modern prog in a way, but I think there's other influence. Someone compared it both to Pain of Salvation and Porcupine Tree. And the Pain of Salvation thing, that last song, Lay It Down, I can sort of understand. Some of the riffs are a little punchier, but it's not metal. But I'm Picking Up the Pieces is another track. You Were a Drum. I know I remember liking some of it, and I was like, I gotta spend more time with it. And I just got, again, Mask of the Phantasm, Squid, and Giant Sky were all just like going through rotation for me, and this kind of got lost in that shuffle. Now, they're also the related band to Giant Sky I checked out at the same time, Soup, who I listened to some of their most praised record a few days ago. It was like last week. I think it was last week. And I'm still kind of lukewarm about them. I love Giant Sky, but yeah, still I got to give it more time. So the other record I checked out today is from this artist named Yves something. And let's see here. Yves Tumor. And because again, my friend Martin recommended Yves Tumor. He recommended one other record I haven't gotten around to, but comparing him to like everything Block Party, which is like the sort of art rock, mathy art rock with post punk elements. And Yves Tumor is, I believe, American. They're from Florida, or it's one person actually. It's one like LGBTQ dude, but he has like a backing band stuff. So I don't know about those comparisons that well. Block Party a little bit because the singer is African American, so he sounds a little bit like Kelly from Block Party. But there's one song he sounds a lot like Doug Pinnick from King's X from like the Tapehead through Manic Moonlight period, not the like sort of the classic King's X period. Now this album that came out in March, it's a mouthful. Praise the Lord who chews but which does not consume, or simply, or in parentheses, or simply hot between worlds. I'm wearing a King's X shirt today. Yeah, it's the track. It's like the 3rd track, Meteora Blues. It's not like a full on rip off or tribute, but I could easily see Doug Pinnick singing that song, and King's X has their psychedelic rock moments. The music on here, though, I think it shares a little more in common with, say, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which kind of makes sense. And I know that Yves Tumor has been doing music for Not as long as King Gizzard, but for a while. And, I first thought of, like, Hot Chip, but it's not as electronic as Hot Chip. I mean, that indie-tronica stuff, like The Chap or like La Priest or whatever, to an extent, or... but it's more in the line of, like... It's psych rock, it's neo-psychedelia, and some of the guitar textures are cool. Some of it is a little... I'm kind of thinking it's a little overdone, but it doesn't go too far off the deep end. I think of, like, Pepe Deluxe or Bruno Pernadas. However, unfortunately with Bruno Pernadas, they were compared to Pepe Deluxe. I checked them out last year, and I was kind of underwhelmed with them. Or, like, Hiatus Coyote. In that kind of neo-psychedelic rock with sort of a... I don't call it a soulful singer, LGBTQ, styled vocalist, if there's such a thing. There's a lot of effects. The other thing that's cool about some of the music on here is that it uses samples, like field recordings or recordings from other, just like people talking, people from a show, a radio show, a podcast, something like that. Which, when done well, often with like post-rock, I really can appreciate. We're not overdone. It's not done in excess. I'm going to have to spend some more time with this. I think, at a minimum, this is a very spotty record that its best of is really good. I mean, I heard a bunch of tracks on Meteora Blues, Parody, Operator, Heaven Surrounds Us Like a Hood, Ebony Eye, Echolalia. I mean, it's kind of cinematic. And I think this is kind of reaching a larger demographic. The hipster crowd might be aware of this. It's not prog in the sense that it's not going to be the prog. It's maybe closer to some of the stuff like Squid, post-punk revival, but it doesn't sound like Black Country Road or Squid or Black Midi, really. I mean, it's sort of a good balance, and of course they're not British, they're from Florida. This gentleman, this guy, Yves Tumor. But the other thing about Yves Tumor is, Yves Tumor has, like, I want to say, and this thing's not loading, of course, I want to say 3 or 4 of the records. At least. Well, in that sense, they're a little bit like Pepe Deluxe in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6th album since 2015. Not quite at that. It's more like maybe like Deerhoof or Motorcycle, where it's like a record every other year. But the last 3 on Rate Your Music are bolded. This one's actually, this is not. It's a new record, in fairness. It's only been out like a month and a half. But if I'm won over by this album, I don't think I'll have a choice. It's a little bit like Toehider, which I'm still trying to digest the previous Toehider records, and I'm getting into them. Heaven to a Tortured Mind and Safe in the Hands of Love. Those two from 2020 and 2018. So, it's not I don't know if it's a slam dunk, but I've had cases where I was sort of lukewarm on an artist, but I liked a few extra songs, and then suddenly, boom. I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I mean, King Gizzard, when they are good, are really good. I'm just overwhelmed by too much music, and too much music that I'm not blown away by. I think this music, the music that he's made, potentially is a little more dialed in, and it's not so excessive where I'm getting overwhelmed by so much music. Now, Toehider is super prolific, too. He's putting out this project of 12 EPs in 12 months, that if you're on the Patreon. So, I don't know what it is about. Sometimes it happens. I like to feel like when artists spend a large amount of time, years, that the work reflects that, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just have lightning in a bottle, and kind of like I feel like on Transatlantic. I wish they had put out 2 or 3 records after Bridge Across Forever, and they would have probably still caught the lightning in a bottle at that point, but they didn't after they had that long that 6 or 7 year hiatus. That's the other thing about Toehider. My Toehider vinyl, which I've been waiting, I ordered it the first week of December for the Bandcamp Friday, is been shipped, so it's supposed to be expected on the 21st of June. I'm still waiting on Mask the Phantasm. I will show those when they do come in, and the Dredge El Cielo, the 20th anniversary edition. So, and I'm going to Local Natives. They're coming August 18th to First Avenue. So, anyway, that's kind of the roundup of what's come out. Watching Lucky Hank. That's the other thing, is there's a song on the pilot episode of Lucky Hank by this band called Pulse That I cannot find. It was on Spotify and YouTube. There's links and descriptions on a bunch of websites. Um, it's called, and there's a song by Alicia Keys that's of the same name. Love is Like the Sea. It has like, it almost sounds like a King Crimson or like a Nick Drake thing. Flute, like very soft vocals, kind of folky, but sort of melodic and psychedelic. You know, it really worked with the scene well. I don't know why this thing's been pulled, because back when the pilot episode of Lucky Hank aired on AMC, it was on Spotify. I think it was on YouTube. It's been mentioned, and it was mentioned on some of the reviews. It was linked on the soundtrack sites and stuff. A lot of the music in Lucky Hank is good. But this thing is nowhere to be found right now. I hope they bring it back. Maybe they'll put it out as a record or a release, a full album release at some point, and it will show up. Because it's like, why do you have your music and then you pull it? What? The band wasn't happy? They didn't want it on the show, or I don't know. I don't know what the label was upset. You know, maybe they dropped them or something. I don't know. I mean, I never heard of this band Pulse, but that song in the first episode of Lucky Hank is quite good. My friend John, who watched it, felt the same way. So yeah, I'm 3 episodes in, so once I finish, I'll have to do a more detailed review. But anyway, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We'll see you next time.